welcome to Get Lockered. I'm Nancy. There's CJ.
Hi.
There's
My hair's
Butch.
crazy.
We are in Ellenwood, Kansas, and we're fixing to go into the museum. Well, you can't see it right there. And then we're going to do an underground tour, and then we're going to spend the night in the haunted Wolf Motel. More to come. Oh, like, comment, share, subscribe. Look at TikTok. I'm there now. And
You wanted to
do something good for somebody and get lockered. Cool bottles. Iron Depot letterbox for mail that could not be mailed at the post office. Huh. Cool little stuff. American Vacuum Cleaner Company, New York City. This was a vacuum cleaner. Oh my word.
I'm going to tell you about Ellinwood and our tunnels, how they were used, and what happened to them, and then I'll take you downstairs and show you what's on this side of the street. When we're finished here, we'll come back up and you all can head over to the hotel, and Beth will meet you over there and she'll take you on a tour of that building. And then when we're finished over there, you all can go down to the museum down the street, which is the first building in the next block, and just show them those tickets and they'll know you paid me up here. So anybody from out of state, you know, Kansans? Okay, this area of Kansas was settled about 1860, and the reason things developed here is because the Santa Fe Trail passed right along the highway out here. Up the street where our golf course is today is where the great bend in the Arkansas River makes its bend, and that's where the teamsters used to stop to water their oxen and mules. And that goes clear back to the 1820s. In the 40s and 50s, there were as many as 1,000 wagons a day spread out between Missouri and Santa Fe, so it was a fairly busy highway out here. So about 1860, a little trading post opened up. And then around 1870, the people that were here noticed that the traffic on the Santa Fe Trail was slowing down, and that's because the railroads were starting to come through. So they contacted the Santa Fe and asked them if they'd send a surveyor here to actually lay out a town, hoping that we'd get a train depot. And John Ellenwood showed up, and he was here for a few months and laid out a 1 square mile town with a 2-block business district, and we're still 1 square mile with a 2-block business district.
Underground?
Okay, so this is Tom Drake's varnish shop, and he was here in 1887. Our foundation walls all the way down Main Street are this sort of pinkish colored limestone, and by the color of the stone we think it was quarried up around La Crosse, Kansas, so it was all hauled in about 60 miles. From street level up, our buildings were made out of Ellenwood brick, and then all this wood you see in the building was probably hauled in from the Rocky Mountains. If you look at how long and straight and beautiful that wood is, of course you know right away the trees didn't grow in Kansas. When the Teamsters got down to Santa Fe, they'd sell off their trade goods, and then they'd hitch 2 wagons together and load them full of lumber. And that way they had a product they could sell on their way back to Missouri. We used to have a window up here, and then there were 2 windows down on the front wall, and they were for ventilation. They would have had a coal-burning stove in here to keep it warm in the wintertime, and they always would have had oil-burning lanterns hanging around the room, so they needed to have cross-ventilation here. Notice the water well over here in the corner. When our Germans got here, they realized they'd been lied to. It does get cold in Kansas, so put the well in the basement and it won't freeze. The other advantage is the aquifer was about 10 feet below us in those days, so it was easy to dig the wells. Just about everything in this room is original. Tom Drake worked down here until 1920. When he retired, he tried to sell the varnish shop. Nobody wanted it because automobiles had shown up by then. So he sold off his merchandise. They tore down the shed and back. He put a padlock on the door and walked off and left everything. And Adriana's grandfather never re-rented the space, so she found all of this in the 1960s when she inherited the building from her uncle. We even have our original wiring up here, the knob and tube wiring. Probably came in around 1910. Please don't touch it, we're still using it. The room up above us is where the bank was located, but in 1894 they moved over to the Wolf Motel building. When they moved out, Adriana's grandfather invested in the first telephone company. So those wires running along the wall right over there are the original telephone lines into Ellinwood. And where that nest of wires is right over there is where the switchboard was up in the room above us. And my phone and computer are still hooked up to those wires today too. So got our money's worth out of our wiring down here. Got these. They're what bodies were cooled off on before they were embalmed. And they're sloped so that they could drain the body fluids. And this one in front here was a really nice one. It's dated 1886. And that one you could fold up like a suitcase and take out to the farmhouse if you were going to embalm somebody out on the back porch and then have visitation in the parlor. And they both came from our local mortuary here in Ellinwood. This was the
I think on the show we watched last night, you were telling about that being bricked up, that area there.
Is that right? Yeah. So this is underneath the sidewalks. So this tunnel went that direction for 2 blocks. It looked just the same over on the other side of the street. The tunnels were divided down the middle by these brick walls, and you'll notice there are doors all the way down. This side of the tunnel used to have wooden partitions that created these small lockable rooms. And this is where the merchants would store their coal. We didn't have wood to burn in Kansas, and coal was expensive, so they'd have a load brought over. They'd pry up the wooden sidewalk, dump the coal down here, and then nail the sidewalk back down. In 1920, the city put in concrete sidewalks, but they were still using the coal bins, so they put the manholes in so they could drop it through the sidewalks. And then in the 70s, when the city filled in the tunnels and put this sidewalk down, Adriana got them to save the manholes. So these are 1920 manholes in the 1970 sidewalk above the 1870s tunnel. The other side over here is where the guys walked up and down the street. Originally there were wooden sidewalks down there, so if it did get wet you wouldn't be walking in the mud. The light from the shops would shine through the windows so you could see where you were going. And did you notice that that side over there is a little bit narrow? I think they did that on purpose. You always have to keep in mind there were 11 bars down here. And that way the guys could stay upright as they were going up and down the street out here. Now we're going to go down this way. When we get down to the end, there's a slight downhill slope. To the left, you'll see where the tunnel went under Main Street over to Weber's Saloon in the basement of the hotel, and then you can go all the way to the train depot. On the right is one of the 8 stairways that brought you down here, and then I'll have you make a sharp right-hand turn. Did we lose somebody?
Yeah, he's claustrophobic.
Oh, uh-oh.
He was starting to get the best of it.
Uh-oh.
He wanted to step out and see this too.
Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, if anybody wants to sit down on the bench there, and the 2 chairs by the card table are good to sit on. This is William Young's barber shop. Mr. Young was a German man who came to Ellenwood in 1882. He moved in here in 1887, and this is a picture of him in this barber shop around 1900. He was a prominent businessman here in town. His big claim to fame is that he was our band leader. The band used to practice down here in the barber shop. Somebody wrote on the wallpaper behind me, the Ellenwood band meeting here last time, 12/29. Imagine what it sounded like when they were practicing in here.
We are inside the Wolf Motel.
This is, always used to ask me if I had pictures of the Bachamo brothers. And we have a gentleman that is just wonderful to send us things like that. This is Edwin. He's the bank president. Now, I think he looks okay. I'd probably give him my money. But guys, look at Leo. I think he looks like a shyster. Like he'd just stand there and twirl his mustache and think up naughty things to do. Now, Leo committed suicide, and Edwin went off to jail. What's interesting about that is they sent him to prison in Florida, of all places, in 1908. That would have been quite a deal. Doesn't really make sense to me, but what do I know? We also know that he only spent 8 years in jail. We don't know if that was his full term or if he got out on good behavior, perhaps. Everybody always wants to know, how much money did they steal? $35,000. Now that doesn't sound like a lot, but to put it in perspective, this building just a few years earlier, only cost $10,000 to build. So that was a lot of money. The other question, did they ever find the money? No, and I want you to know that when Chris bought the place, we all looked everywhere. Didn't find a darn thing. The rumor around town is that they had been gambling with the money. They were taking money from the bank and gambling. Evidently not too successful of gamblers. And so it just kept getting bigger and bigger. So he finally got out of jail, but of course he didn't ever come back this way because he would not have been, very
Welcome.
liked around. Yeah, because people did lose their money. This was voodoo. And I know a couple of different ones of you are spending the night here. Now back in the day, like I told you, the train station was right across the street. They tell me that it burnt down when they were using coal to run the trains, and I guess they did that quite often. After it burnt down, they went down here and built a red brick building. Of course, nowadays, we don't have any trains. They don't even hardly slow down for us here. They keep right on going. Anyway, all of our rooms are up on the second level. We have 5 rooms now, but back in the day, they said around 10 is what they had. Now, in the year of 1924, one of Mr. Wolf's children wanted to join the business. Well, you know how kids are, they've always got big ideas. And he wanted to build on this dining room because the hotel stopped right at that. So he talked his dad into building this dining room. Now, anytime they talked about this dining room, they said it was the most beautiful dining room in Barton County. And people would come from all over to eat in this fancy restaurant. So this isn't as old as the main building. The original foundation for the hotel is the native stone and pink native stone over there. Now they used this area to do laundry in, and also this was used to keep some of their supplies for the restaurant. The first thing I found was this dandy washer. And we were tearing down a house and found it in the basement. It took a lot of talking, but I finally got the guys to bring it here. Then you can't have a washer without a clothesline. And then you can't have a clothesline, an old time one, without some long johns. So it just kind of gets out of hand, one thing after the other. Go ahead and follow me on in here. Again, this is just like anyone's basement.
This is like a dressmaker's mannequin.
This happens to be one of the beds that we paid for
Old washer.
originally for the rooms upstairs. We found it behind where they had the boiler room. And I slept in an old-time metal bed, but it was tinny. It was lightweight. This thing I can't lift off of the floor. It is heavy. And Chris always tells everybody when he's doing the tour that this is where I sleep when I spend the night here. I don't spend the night very often. Now, those of you that are normal height, I want you to be careful and not hit your head here. And then down below there's some cement piled up here. So go ahead and follow me on in here.
Excuse me.
I don't either. Now, as you walk into this room, you're going to immediately feel a difference in the temperature and the whole feel of it. And that's because we are right underneath the sidewalk. So it works kind of like an oven, you know, when that sun shines on it, it gets hot, and in the winter, it's really, really cold down here. Now, this little machine is one of the first air conditioners in Barton County. And I always tell Chris I'd like to hear that thing started up. And he always tells me, I only live 2 blocks from here. I probably could hear it at home. Go ahead and follow me on in here and see our first room, our first wardrobe. Now this is a lot different than what you're seeing across the street because people think that we did this or someone along the line. No, this is how it was built. We were settled by Bavarian Germans, and this is how they built in Bavaria. So that's what they knew to do, to build 3 different levels that could be used for stores or whatever. This room was called the drummer's room, and the gentleman that owned it, he went all over the country buying things that he thought the storekeepers on Main Street would want. He would ship them back here, and then they would come down and buy the items from him. So it's kind of like one of our very first wholesale places. Go ahead and come on in. Watch your step. We kind of tried to fix the floor a little bit, but not real good. Now, this is the only place that I'm going to take you into that hasn't been totally redone. And we have a really good, 2 good reasons actually for that. The first one is probably within 3 or 4 months of the time that Chris bought the place, a lady had been telling her co-workers about the tunnelway, and they just couldn't seem to understand. So she called Chris and asked if she could bring them. And so he said, bring them on, I'll take them down and show them around. So they did that. They came in this room, which by the way, was completely bare. There wasn't anything left anywhere in this building. So they came in here, talked a few minutes. He told them a story about a black man. Do any of you know what a sundown town is, or was
Yes.
back in the day?
Yes, if the blacks were in town after sundown, they were home.
Yeah, or killed. They could be killed. Now that's not something we're proud of, guys. I'm not supporting that at all. But one night there was a gentleman that had rode the train over here, got to drinking, and didn't go home like he was supposed to. And some guys caught him out here in the alleyway by the hotel. They beat him up really horrible. And so after they left, some other guys felt bad for him, and they came in and asked the guy that owned the hotel if they could put him in a room because they couldn't take him to the hospital or anything. Well, the guy that owned the hotel said no. On the other side.
Well, there's proof.
Well, it's not really proof, but we 7 saloons underground. So we knew that we had to do a saloon. So follow me to the saloon.
Oh, this is really nice.
You know where Towson is?
Trash? Yeah.
That's where we
Which
were.
top?
That's where my first visit was. This is my second.
Ah, well, good. Now, it did not look anything like this when we bought it. In fact, this was the only place in the building that bothered me to come into. When I would open that door and walk in, I could just feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. And they kept saying, well, we're going to make a saloon down here. And I kept saying, oh, I don't like that room. It was really creepy. It was, all the trim and stuff was painted that pea green that they painted in the late 30s and 40s. And the bar was completely gone. It was Don't knock yourself out.
That's not. Oh, true, I didn't mention. You enter downstairs from over here.
No, you enter from over where we went down.
So it's like a small tunnel loop.
Yeah.
So we just went in a circle.
Kind of, yeah. Oh, there she
All
is.
rooms to
What
show.
can I show?
All rooms on this side.
Great, because we couldn't last one. So go ahead and look. These are the rooms. That's the double queen. This one we call the wedding room.
This all room.
Not really.
This is all room. The one down there on the end. I
Number
think.
two?
Rooms have their
I
own
don't know. I think so. It's
bathroom,
2 beds.
and two of the rooms have to share this. Usually it ends up just being one room because we usually don't rent this one out. And then this is the parlor. No, you didn't. You're not staying here, so you didn't get anything.
Yes, he is.
Is he staying here?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Well, if he's staying here, he can have a snack later,
I'm with
but not
her.
now.
I'm with her.
Do you guys know what room you?
We're getting a double bed, two queen
It's
beds.
probably that first room with the
So number
double
two.
queen, but I'll check with Chris for sure. We haven't had this stained glass very long, about 4 or 5 months now. Chris had that made and surprised us all by putting our names on everybody that worked as a volunteer on the beginning. So that's kind of neat to know I'll be gone and that'll still be here. Now, this part right here is kind of different, and that came out of our opera house, which was a block down. And part of the opera house burned down, but they were able to save some things. And so the guy that owned the antique store bought this and had it put up here. So it's kind of neat because the opera house was built about the same time as this building was. So pretty cool. And then of course over here is where you can fix your own breakfast when you stay with us. We also do small parties up here. Maybe somebody wants to have 10 people in a smaller area. We do that up here. But I can no longer go up and down the steps that many times, so we have had somebody young bring me the food to put out, because I can only
That's
do
where
it
it's
about
supposed to
7
be, isn't it?
times.
Mhm.
Well, it should be that way, shouldn't it? Now, by the time we got done with this, we were kind of tired of the foo-foo fancy.
I swear there's something in the hallway, which is going to get his reaction.
You're going to feel a slight upward.
Now, stop. Feel it? You feel the floor?
Where is it on the form?
In the book. Do you feel it?
Mm-hmm.
This is where the sun is setting. That's actually a street light. And there's a car coming. And then let's go overhead. See back that way. And then look how dark it is back that way. On my phone it looks light.
Holy cow!
On my phone it looks light, but It's really, really, really like pitch black dark out there.